Broadcasting from the Any Hour Services podcast studios, I'm your host, Mike Wilson, and on this episode of In the House, we're going to be talking about why water heaters work harder in the winter. Let's go. It's much better when you actually have something to game.
Am I doing okay with the mics? I know I'm making a little bit of noise, but okay.
We wouldn't invite you back, Dwayne, if you were doing too bad. Everything that you do isn't bad enough to make up for the good that you do. Did that say? The good you do far outweighs the tapping on the table every once in a while.
All right.
We wouldn't trade it. We wouldn't trade you, Dwayne.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Glad I feel so needed.
Well, I know we're glad you're here. In the House is a podcast about the major systems in the house: electrical, plumbing, heating, and air conditioning. Each week I'm joined by a panel of experts. We pick a topic and we discuss it in depth. Did you ever figure out, Austin, when I get to stop saying that? Because I know in the beginning we were like, oh, you should explain what the show is because people are going to be new and listening and stuff. But I don't want people to get bored with me.
I think when we start getting questions from social,
Ooh.
Then it's okay, people know who we are.
When you say questions from social, meaning they're commenting and they're like, hey, can you talk about this? Or questions like, why do you say what the show is every single time? That question.
Either or.
Either or, okay.
Yeah.
If you're listening, please ask us a question so that we don't have... Anyway, I've got Scott and Dwayne back with us in the studio today. They're managers over the plumbing service department at Any Hour Services. Random question. Are you guys milk drinkers?
Yeah.
You are?
Yeah, I mean, not a ton, though.
Yeah.
I prefer other
Beverages
than milk.
But I mean, you're not lactose intolerant. Not the I'm not trying to get too crazy, but
No.
because I've heard people say that your bodies aren't designed to process dairy products. Have you heard people say that? No.
I'd hate that. I grew up on a farm milking cows.
Yeah.
So.
Did you drink the milk without treating it?
Yep. Occasionally it would just go.
That seems so weird.
It was
That
warm.
seemed really weird.
It was warm. We'd feed the cats. The cats would be there, and you'd
I could
squirt
see
it
that.
at the cat.
I could see that, but milk in a bucket and then just drinking it. It just, I've heard people say oh no, it's great, but I don't know if it's so great. Why do they pasteurize it?
Well, a lot of people don't like the pasteurization. They like the pure stuff.
Well, you say a lot of people, but they sell an awful lot of milk.
Well, yeah,
that's pasteurized.
Well,
it seems like if
storage.
a lot of people didn't like it, they would not pasteurize it, or they would leave it on. I don't know.
Yeah, but you have to keep it stored, and it's got to last and things. So when you drink your gallon the very next day, fresh out of the cow, there's not going to be a chance for bacteria and things to.
It's true. I guess I could see that. I grew up in the South, and when we moved to, I don't remember if it was Georgia or in Louisiana, but there was a Mayfield Dairy Company. Their signature was a yellow milk jug, and they said it's because the light would affect the milk and make it go bad sooner or something. All I knew is that those Mayfield jugs were better for jug fishing because you could see them further away. I don't know why. Why is milk what we're talking about? I was actually, what I was going to ask you guys is why milk is considered the fastest liquid out there. Yeah. Because it's pasteurized before you see it.
So true. So fast.
Jeez.
There you go. Okay, so on the show today, all of that milk talk. I'm going to be honest.
Where do we go where do we go from there? That was just.
We're going to go into water heaters working harder, and I do have to I do have to admit something. The whole are you a milk drinker was all to set up that joke.
That joke.
Yeah. Not that joke needed a setup, but I wanted to have you not see it coming.
I had no clue.
I didn't either.
No clue.
Great setup.
Success.
Great segue.
I don't know if it would be great because then all of a sudden you were talking about eating, like drinking unpasteurized milk, and I was like, wait, where do
Wait.
Is this my segue? Do I talk about it now? I'm not sure.
Pasteurized.
Anyway.
All
So
right.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that most people don't realize that their water heater is actually working harder in the winter. But I think that, that has more to do with the fact that people don't really think about that very much, and so they don't really care. As long as you've got some hot water, they think, it's built to handle anything, cold weather, or whatever. So let's just address this real quick. Explain why a water heater is working harder in the winter, Dwayne.
All right. Well, here in our Mountain West, typically our water in the summer coming into the homes is probably around 60-degree temperature. Some areas are a little warmer and things depending on the big tanks that they have and if they're exposed and the sun, where their water draw is coming from. And but in the winter, almost every supply drops clear down to about 45 degrees. And so it's a lot colder water coming in, and so you get less hot water out of that hot water heater because it has to heat more as it's coming in and changing the temperatures.
And am I correct in assuming that it takes more energy and more work to heat water from 40 degrees to whatever your water heater is set at, 110, 120, than it does to go from 60 to that?
Oh yeah, definitely a lot. There's a lot more energies consumed. The burner's on a lot longer, so that heat and expansion and contraction and everything that goes on in the whole cycle of a water heater heating up and producing hot water is the time's length out. Just like our furnaces run longer and more in the winter than they do in the fall, or of course we have them off in the summer.
Sure. And I don't know about you guys, and maybe since you're plumbers and you're more aware of it, you don't do it, but as an average just human being that wakes up colder in the morning, I take longer hot showers in the winter to defrost these old bones and get to moving around. So like it's working harder, you're running it longer, you're using it more, the temperature of the water coming in. So it's more of a strain on the water heater. Now it is built to handle those things, but it is harder on it. So what does all of that extra pressure and stress and work on the water heater, what does that actually do to the water heater itself? Like, why do we even care?
Well, I think it's like anything that overworks. If it is designed to do that, obviously, but the more it's functioning, the less likely it's going to last as long.
You mentioned, Dwayne, you drew the correlation to, running furnaces, and we see way more furnaces go out in the winter and get replaced in the winter. Do you see now I know that we replace water heaters all year round, but do you see an uptick in water heaters going out in the winter because of this?
I think there is a little bit of one, but it's hard because we do so many, it's kind of hard to quantify. But those ones that are just on the edge, I think we do see when that water turns much colder, then it was fine during the summer, but then all of a sudden during the winter, it just can't keep up, and it expands just one too many times or something like that, and then they start to leak. And
so the older it gets, maybe the more chance that extra work is going to cause a part to fail.
Well, yeah,
on the edge.
How many miles do you get on a car before you decide,
12.
I don't think I want to go to Michigan this summer in our car because I'm worried about at 245,000 miles. I'm fine for driving around here.
Does anyone ever decide they want to go to Michigan in the summer?
I'd love to.
Oh, okay. I've never had that thought cross my mind.
California, I don't know. I mean, wherever, but those.
I know what you were saying, Dwayne. I was just making more jokes.
Come on.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So does this, we've talked before about, water heaters lasting, it depends. It's your favorite answer for everything. But we've talked about water heaters, about that 8, 10, 12 year mark, and it depends on the condition of the water and how it's being used and things. But does this working harder in the winter, do you think that contributes to, the lifespan being as short as it is? Because for a water heater, I don't know, like 10 years might sound like a lot, but the older I get, like 10 years doesn't seem like it. We just replaced this thing 10 years ago. So, I mean, do you think that affects it?
I don't have like any facts on this, but in
We don't need facts on this show.
That's Dwayne's job, right? Dwayne's our fact guy. But
I hope to be to the point someday that like people are fact checking us. They're just listening and they're just on Google and they're just like, well, I don't know. It's 22 degrees coming in the winter, Dwayne,
and it's only 55 in the summer.
Oh, just right. Throw this episode out. Sorry, Scott. You just threw me off there.
Well, I know what cold water can do to expanding a crack. Like it seems like every time I have one on my windshield and I choose to go ahead and put some hot water on there, it doesn't seem to bode well.
That's true.
The crack just takes off, and it's very similar on anything in your water heater. It's a glass liner inside there as well. If you have things that are compromised, the cold water can contribute to things failing quicker. You can't control what temperature of water you're getting. You know what I mean? It's not like you can do something about that, but that is just kind of a factor that, it does work harder in the winter, and it takes a lot more abuse in the winter than it would like in the summer because it doesn't have to heat up as hard.
So we can't control any of that, the factors of how cold the water is coming in. Are there things that we can do in the winter to any type of maintenance or things that we need to do to our water heaters? Or is it more of as long as you're doing this to the water heater periodically, then you're okay?
Well, anytime you can flush, that's going to help. Keeping the water heater clean and
flushing the water heater.
Just flushing the water heater.
Because we flush at the house a lot.
Okay, sorry. There we go.
I don't know if people are going to take this literally. Wait, I can help my water heater?
By flushing. By flushing.
Yes,
flushing the water heater. And keeping it clean because there again, that burner is on for a lot longer time frame. Mm-hmm. And if we can get that heat into the water quicker, then we save energy on that, and it helps that whole process. If it's having to heat up a bunch of calcium and build up and make its way up through, and it's popping and crackling as it's heating and things like that, then a good clean is definitely gonna help keeping that thing clean so that the heat can get right to the water.
So this doesn't necessarily pertain to water heater working harder, but since you bring up flushing the water heater, I'm wondering because plumber sent me a video of he was pulling out a heating element on an electric water heater, and it was just solid calcium. Like he couldn't even like get it out of the opening. Finally gets it out, and I'm wondering, does flushing the water heater? I know it helps like get rid of sediment, but does it help that buildup of the hard water that's happening either on the heating elements or along the bottom? Does it help if you're doing it periodically with that? Does that make sense?
I saw the video, and that's a little bit kind of a tricky question because it will build up on the element because it's its own thing sitting in the middle of the water flow.
Yep.
And so flushing a water heater really wouldn't help that a bunch. However, having a softener or having the right type of water going into your heater would be a huge benefit to that. But flushing, it's not going to affect much on the heating element itself, but it does on the other components of like a gas-fired water heater. Absolutely.
Well,
even on the electric ones though too, because people typically don't flush them, that sediment in those electric ones, because of the barnacles and things, it's a different type of heat. The sediment builds up much, much quicker. And where I've seen in when I've worked on them, there's buildup. That buildup has come up 12 inches and is surrounding that element, so it can't even get out of itself, out of its own way, kind of a thing. And so, if they were to flush and keep the sediment and the buildup down below that level, it's definitely going to help that.
Well, and I also like what because there were some people that would like comment like, hey, flushing doesn't do anything here. And I explained that like, well, if you're doing the regular maintenance and you're flushing and you see that there's an issue, it triggers you to, maybe check those, heating elements so that it doesn't become a bigger issue. But that's a good point.
I mean, we have the same type of heating element in our dishwashers, and there's times when you see those get really built up, and so they, you can throw some vinegar in there and run it through a cycle with vinegar. The rinse aids that you always put in, that's designed to kind of break down the spots and keep the spotting from happening. That also keeps that buildup off of that element down there that's heating up.
Gotcha. So besides, just making sure you're staying up on the maintenance and like flushing the water heater, that really seems like, water heaters are, they're essentially tanks, literally. And so, if you're keeping up on the maintenance and flushing it and paying attention to stuff like that, it is designed to handle those colder temperatures in the winter. But if you're neglecting those things, then it's probably going to struggle a little bit more in the winter.
Yeah. Can I tell another little story?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. A few years ago, I went to a home that the guy it was an older gentleman, and he'd installed one of those walk-in tubs. Mm-hmm. He had a company come out, and they said, you got to have a 50-gallon heater, and he only had a 40. So I came in, and it was in June, I think, when I did this, and we put the brand new 50-gallon water heater in. Everything was fine and worked good. In early December, we got a phone call, and the guy said, I'm not getting as much hot water anymore. And I thought, well, we can't in just 6 months have that much buildup and things. But this was a real judge of how much it is, because he could fill it all the way in. You get in and you let it fill, and he could fill it almost all the way up to the overflow before the water started to turn colder than it was warmer, kind of a thing, and use that whole 50 gallons. But during the winter, he was only able to fill it less than 3/4 full. And then he had to sit there and wait, and he couldn't get it up to the height that he needed to even turn on the jets and everything. But mistakenly, it was one of those where I went out and I flushed it, and it's like, it's brand new, it's clean. I'm looking at the burner, the assembly, I'm doing everything I can. And then suddenly it just hit me that, our water's a lot colder coming in. So he's not getting his 50 gallons that he was used to. He's getting 38 gallons or something like that before it turned to that where it was warmer than colder. So it definitely, that was a real good example of, he was used to it every day being just right. And then as we got cold. So,
a tankless would fix that, right? Because the tankless monitors and, it regulates the temperature of the water coming out regardless of the temperature of the water coming in. Right. So that's,
but the gallons per minute also do drop down,
sure,
with the tankless, that it's able to deliver because of that colder water.
It just might take a little bit longer for his tub to fill up.
Yeah.
Because I'm just sitting there as you're explaining that. I'm just thinking of, I have a tankless at my house, so I don't always relate. My mind doesn't always go to those problems that people experience with a tanked water heater, because I'm not experiencing them on a daily basis.
Yeah,
but like a lot, I'm thinking of a lot of people that like that's a consequence, or that's something that could happen in the winter. You could run out of hot water sooner, and it's not necessarily because your water heater isn't working. It's just that it can't keep up with your demand because of the temperature of the water. You can't heat it up fast enough at the rate that you're using it. So that's interesting. Anything else? It's not a super, in-depth episode. It's working harder because the water's colder.
I have a question.
Uh-oh.
I just have like the hardest water that comes into my house. It's really old. I've galvanized pipes, the whole deal, right? So about twice a year, I end up taking apart my water fixtures and putting them in a container of vinegar to get all the calcium off. And I always wondered, because I just maybe 2 years ago got a new water heater, and I already noticed that it's starting to do the popping, and I flush it like a lot just so that to try and prevent it. So my question is, can I empty that bad boy and put vinegar inside of that tank to sit on the bottom for a little while and then flush it again?
He's got questions.
There's no reason why you couldn't. Vinegar is not a chemical you can't consume. So
if you come to work smelling like pickles, I'm going to know what's up.
Part of the problem, Austin, on that though, is that the buildup also, there's a tube that the heat comes up through on the whole side, and the buildup and the popping and crackling, that tube expands and contracts all the way up. And so a lot of the popping and crackling can happen on that. And I don't know that it's cost effective to shove 50 gallons of
It's a lot of vinegar.
Go to Costco. Go to
It was
Costco.
just like, I just wanted to like coat the bottom. So I guess that answers my question. It's not just the bottom. It's this whole piece that goes throughout the entire. Okay.
Yeah,
Got it.
it's way more than just the bottom of it.
And it's probably not so much on the outside walls of the water heater as it is there again where that heat, because it's always the heat that makes it calcify on it.
Get a softener.
Get a softener.
Now, a softener will reverse the effects of that, right? Or will it not?
I don't think it'll reverse.
No.
It won't reverse it, yeah.
Okay, so our solution is 50-gallon jug of vinegar. We'll go to Costco. We could make. I think that it would be a good video to put on YouTube. I've never seen anyone do it. I've never seen anyone try and like. I don't know how much a 50-gallon container of vinegar would be.
We'll probably get our first people writing in about this one, because there are some additives and there are some things out there that you can put in. We've just found that, and let it soak and then flush and clean. We've just found it's not really cost effective for the benefit. But if you've got time to sit there and let it soak for 2 or 3 days, and you have to disconnect the things and pour the chemical in and make sure you get it all flushed out, because that stuff is hard. You wouldn't want to drink CLR. It's a little harsh, and that's the type of material that you can put in that I've seen, out there. But it's not something that we have in our repertoire of fixes that we do.
I'm okay with you not showering for a few days if we want to like fill the thing up or put something in it. Like, I think we've got a test case here.
Yeah,
Case
I'm
study.
down.
Start stockpiling it, because like I say, you have to go to the grocery store and buy all 5 gallons that are there at a time, and then over the course of a month, and
That's.
people will think you're
Have you seen a 5-gallon bucket of vinegar?
no.
Oh,
So
you'd
5
need
1 gallons.
5 1
that
gallon
are on the shelf. And
so
then
yeah, we'd need
you'd
50
have to
of
start.
those.
Yeah, you have to start about a year ahead of time.
Let's do it. I'm
Let's
down.
do it.
And then you could do a social media thing on. Look, I went to the store and there was no vinegar, and you could start a whole new craze.
That's true. Why are people hoarding vinegar tonight on KSL?
All the stores in town, nobody has vinegar.
KSL investigates. Turns out you're going to be like that dude that had like the sanitizer in his storage unit. You're going to have to make a public apology and be like, I'll donate all the vinegar to Red Cross. Shortages aren't funny. Why are you laughing, Dwayne?
That was good. No, that was a good one.
Well, all right, I think that's a good play. That's the show. Nothing else? We're good? Should we wrap this up? Should we go back to milk? No.
Nope.
That's the show. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next Tuesday with a new episode of In the House. If you'd like to know more about Any Hour Services, visit Any Hour Services. Thanks, guys, for being here. I've been your host, Mike Wilson, and you've been listening to In the House.